So you got this article from thepolitico.com, how the Bernie wing won the Democratic primaries. Well, you might ask, what do they mean, how the Bernie wing won the Democratic primaries? Well, let's take a look. And I hate to say it, but Politico, it's one of the rare smart articles you'll ever see from Politico. With his primary election victory last week, Illinois Congressman Dan Lipinski, a blue dog and cultural conservative, won the first major 2018 battle between the Democratic Party's establishment and progressive wings. But don't be confused about what it means. The war is already over and the establishment lost. Even though only 2 states have actually voted so far this primary election season, Texas, a red state redoubt, and Illinois, a blue state stronghold, the battle for supremacy this primary season is all but complete. In state after state, the left is proving to be the animating force in Democratic primaries, producing a surge of candidates who are forcefully driving the party towards a more liberal orientation on nearly every issue. These candidates are running on an agenda that moves the party beyond its recent comfort zone and towards single-payer health care, stricter gun control, a $15 minimum wage, more expansive LGBT rights, and greater protections for immigrants. In the surest sign of the reoriented issue landscape, they're joined by some of the most prominent prospects in the 2020 Democratic primary field. Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, and Kamala Harris among them, who are embracing the same agenda. Well, that's where I kind of gotta call bullshit on my friends at Politico.com, who aren't really my friends. Let's not start the rumorville. First of all, Politico, give me a break. Give me a break. Oh, joining other progressives. Lower the camera, eyes 1/3 down. Okay, I'll lower the camera. You have Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand, Cory Booker, who just suddenly decided to not take donations from special interests, who just suddenly, oh God, I'm trying my best, folks, who just suddenly decided, Kirsten Gillibrand just suddenly decided, I'm not going to take money from Wall Street banks, who just suddenly decided, I'm not going to take money from special interests. Cory Booker, who said, I'm not going to take money from Wall Street. And now we're putting them as the progressive contenders for 2020? Get the hell out of here, Politico. Get the hell out of here. So, moving back, because most of the article was pretty good. These candidates, according to data compiled by the Brookings Institution's Primaries Project, the number of self-identified, non-incumbent progressive candidates in Texas spiked compared with the previous 2 election years. This year, we're nearly 4 times as many progressive candidates, as in 2016. Meanwhile, the number of moderate and establishment candidates remained flat for the past 3 elections in Texas. Even in Illinois, where the Democratic Party holds most of the levers of power, the data tells a similar story. There were more progressive candidates this year, the Primary Project reports, than moderate and establishment candidates by a count of 25 to 21. So, yes, they were not victorious. They were not victorious candidates. But there were more progressive candidates in Illinois. There are more progressive candidates in Texas. These are positive things. And just like I spoke with Anthony Clark, you could watch that interview. It's on the youtube.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. I mean, the hoops and the hurdles and the rigging that went on in his primary in the 7th District against Representative Danny Davis is happening all over the country to progressives. Their signs being stolen off lawns, them being challenged to even get on the ballot by the incumbents. There's a lot of shenanigans going on against progressive candidates. However, there are still more progressive candidates running, and there is a reduced number of establishment candidates running, and this is a positive thing. Let me read you just a little bit more. In Lipinski's case, the congressman didn't believe the strength of the opposition until it was nearly too late. He scrambled in time to defeat Maria Newman, his Bernie Sanders-backed challenger, but the slim margin of victory raises considerable doubts about his future, including whether he could hang on in 2020 when progressives will return in force to try to finish him off in a presidential year when the Democratic turnout is likely to be even higher. The veteran congressman who was abandoned in his hour of need by some of his more liberal colleagues in the House and left for dead by the House Democrats' campaign arm, wrote in an article this week at Real Clear Politics that he was struck by one progressive member's greeting once he returned to Washington. Quote, "Congratulations might be unexpected coming for me, but if they'd taken you out, they'd be coming after everybody." The party's ascendant left is coming after everybody, regardless of the outcome in Lipinski's race. Progressive energy is pushing through the primaries, most notably in the proliferation of Trump backlash grassroots groups like Indivisible, not in love with Indivisible, Justice Democrats, and Brand New Congress that are teaming with activists inspired by Bernie Sanders' 2016 presidential campaign. There's no comparable counterweight with this establishment, within the establishment. Longtime Democrat incumbents, most of whose voting records are far more liberal than that of Lipinski, an abortion rights opponent who voted against the Affordable Care Act in 2010, have been caught in the crosshairs of these activist groups in some of the bluest states on the map, among them California, Massachusetts, and New York. In Chicago, that led to the stiffest primary competition to date for Lipinski and fellow Democratic Congressman Mike Quigley, with both incumbents facing challengers seeking to outflank them on the left. These progressives aren't necessarily sweeping races up and down the ballot, but they are winning enough of them and generating enough grassroots pressure to continue driving the party leftward. So the bottom line is, yes, it's not all victories and sunshine, but there are more victories happening. And also there are more progressive candidates. Thus, the law of averages is moving the incumbent candidates to the left. And I agree, Snoopy. Chicago is a shoot now worse than ever. I'm trying not to curse to see if the YouTube gods will let me, have some money. James Michael Sarvis says it best, DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. They have won several contests. Adetukambo Adetona, sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name. Excellent. The progressives are doing good work. However, they have a bit of a mountain to climb. Yeah, I agree with you, but here's the thing. Now I want to sing, "Ain't no mountain high." Now, oligarchy and the Democratic establishment was not created overnight, folks. So it's not going to be toppled overnight. However, that's a remarkable thing that you have more progressive candidates running than in Texas. Let me repeat, you have more progressive candidates running in Texas than establishment candidates. That article shows you that the establishment candidate growth is flatlined. They're having the same amount of establishment candidates running, but basically progressive candidates in Texas have doubled. So you are going to start seeing more victories. Now, some of those victories are going to be local levels, like a Virginia House of Delegates, Democratic Socialists of America, or a Seattle councilwoman, shawarma savant. But you are starting to see, it's a domino effect. The more progressive candidates you have, the more victories you have, but also the more you are going to drive the incumbents to the left. Of course, they don't mean it. They don't mean it, but you hold them accountable. So for example, a candidate like Anthony Clark, who just lost in Illinois, he runs. Now he's going to have more name recognition when he runs again in 2020, which he told me in an interview. Again, you could watch it here on the YouTube channel. He's going to run again. You get more name recognition. You also have 2 years before you run again to build up an organization and to build up your grassroots organizing. A lot of these candidates, like Anthony, never intended to run for Congress and decided to run pretty much 5 minutes before they were going to be running. So really what you have here are a lot of these progressive candidates are winging it. Yes, I do understand that we want them to win now. But as Mama once told me, all good things come to, what do they say? All good things happen to those who are patient. So you got to keep trucking along. I believe a lot of the progressive candidates that are running this year, if they lose and then run again in 2020, will win. Because a lot of them are seeing, a lot of shenanigans where, like Anthony's case, again, watch the interview, Anthony's case, I mean, the incumbent was literally challenging him in court so that he couldn't get on the ballot. He was getting harassing phone calls. You have his yard signs were being taken down and stolen by the incumbent. I mean, these are things not just happening in the 7th District of Illinois, folks. And while, as we pass 100 viewers, let me post in the chat here my Patreon. So I don't want to say it 20 times, but your support is going to get me back in the field. Your support is going to get me to hire a camera person and lighting person so we could create a studio where I'm not telling a ghost story. Yesterday we had, I think, 10 to 15 new signups. So thank you to each one of you that is subscribing at patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. You are very right on the progressive making ground. I believe that more wins are on the horizon, and this is why the Kamalas are all jumping on the bandwagon. Absolutely. They are all jumping on the bandwagon. And now there's suddenly Kamala Harris, who met with Hillary Clinton's top donors in the Hamptons, which, if you don't know, the Hamptons is like where the pretty rich people go over the summer in Long Island, like mega wealthy, the super rich. That's where they go. And Kamala Harris, who now is suddenly progressive, she was, greasing the elbows of Clinton donors in the Hamptons last summer. Kirsten Gillibrand, who's been taking more money from Wall Street than anybody else other than Chuck Schumer, now all of a sudden she's a progressive. No. Cory Booker? No. We weren't born yesterday. We knew what Hillary Clinton was, and we know who those are. Okay? I believe actions speak louder than words. When Kirsten Gillibrand, when Cory Booker, when Kamala Harris, when they want to come out strongly for Medicare for All and then barnstorm across the country for it, when they want to stop taking money from pharmaceutical companies, when they want to stop taking money permanently from big banks, when they want to come out for free public college tuition, then I'll talk to them. But let's not make any mistake, folks. These people do not have a record of pushing this type of legislation. So we don't know. They could say whatever they want to win the Democratic primary. We don't know if elected, if they will actually follow through.